What is happening, everybody, guys? It's another episode of Comic Book Weekly celebrating our 10-year anniversary. 10 years. Most of you guys probably never even knew we did this show for 10 years, but we did. And whether you're here for the first show or for all of the 10-year shows, we appreciate you guys watching, tuning in, and sticking with us. So, of course, as always, I'm Mike Spider-Slater from the YouTube channel Comic Book Corner 2.0, where this stream also is live on as well. And we have Brant from Only Good Comics.
Hey, everybody.
And then, of course, we have Kat from Comic Uno.
Hello, how's it going?
Yes, and we'll have a phenomenal show. We'll talk about the news. We'll have a little Q&A, and then, of course, we will talk about the comics that came out for this particular comic book week. I apologize last week that I had to dip out early, but I definitely had some computer issues from the very beginning. Chromebooks don't work too well on live streams, and I was able to get about 42 minutes out of it before it crapped out on me, and my normal computer just wasn't working last week, and so that's why I had to use Chromebooks. But everything seems to be working good for this 10-year anniversary thing. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get started with the news.
It was funny because last week, me and Brant, when we got to the comics, there were some comics like, oh man, Mike really should be here for this one, because I wonder what Mike would have thought. I forget which titles we were thinking of that with, but
yeah,
we'd have to go back and remember.
But
we are going to talk about some news.
Avengers Twilight was one of them. Yeah, sorry.
Avengers. No, I'm glad you interrupted. Avengers Twilight was one of them, because we're like, Mike definitely loved this, and we were both didn't. So.
Oh, you guys didn't like it? Yeah. I liked it. I thought it was a good book. I mean, I have to go back and to remember it now, because it's almost been like 2 weeks since I've read it, but I know from what I read of it, I did enjoy it. So, it was because Kamala was in it, and I like how she was aged up and stuff like that. And obviously, there was something between these guys that happened that you don't really know. And Captain America's looking to assemble a team, and he thought he had this grand master plan, and I kind of liked how it backfired on him. So that's kind of like what I liked about it. It wasn't as easy as he thought it was going to be, and he's going to have to work a lot harder in order to succeed in what he needed to do. So I enjoyed it. Wasn't my pick of the week, though. I don't know.
I'm guessing it was probably in your top 5 somewhere.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. I forget which was, again, it was a whole week ago. There was one where I was like, oh, this probably was going to be Mike's pick of the week. But you know what? Go back to that episode and check it out. But
I think I know what it was, but
what was it? No. Tell me.
Batman Offworld?
Yeah, Batman Offworld was my pick of the week. Yeah.
Grant, you have such a good memory, because I can't remember what this week's books are.
What I have is my spreadsheet open with my rankings for last week. So.
That makes me feel a little bit better. Because I'm like, how are you remembering all this? I, again, can't remember what came out this week. So
Batman Offworld was my pick of the week. I enjoyed the book. I thought it was just really fun. I liked how he has this cyber wolf, and I love how it was just you got this person that's Starfire, right? I forget her name is Ione or something like that.
Yeah.
And she's literally coming on to him, and it's just okay, Batman, have some pleasure time here for a few minutes. He's like, just give me 5 more minutes. And it's really, dude? Come on, And then she's like, you're dead to me. I just thought that was just hilarious. And the overall book is cool, man. I thought it's a lot of fun. I think Jason Aaron has done a phenomenal job with this, this different telling of a Batman story.
We actually have a cool question here before we dive into news. The Neighborhood Merc says, will you guys upload the show to Apple Podcasts again? I don't think for the time being we will, just because it does have a lot of costs attached to it. And the reason we were able to do it, and with that Kickstarter funds, we were able to do the podcast for a few months. And we were like, do we do another Kickstarter, or do we just not use the podcast? And we just felt like we just stick to YouTube. But that's the reason why we were able to do a podcast in the first place. So like the audio version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'd also hired an editor to do it because none of us had the time to do it, and we couldn't afford that anymore. So there was a lot that went into it that we just we decided it wasn't right now wasn't the time for that. So
instead, we updated our StreamYard, which I think was a much better use of our money. So we like updating all the stuff with StreamYard because it's where most of you guys find us is through the YouTube. But yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's cool. But let's get into these news pieces here. So first up, Mad Cave is making Disney graphic novels. And the only reason I want to mention this is that Mad Cave already has the paper cuts, all ages thing going on with a lot of the Nickelodeon shows. So I think it's cool that they're diving into more IPs like Disney. And I'm sure they'll bring more crowd to them. And I do think they're very much an up and coming publisher that I'm curious to see where they are in like 5 years, because I don't know if they've made like the Boom status just yet, but really Boom made its name because of all the IPs it had.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Boom, in the beginning, Mad Cave was solely focused on like independent creator stuff, and they've slowly kind of gone into the licensed game because as a smaller publisher, when you're trying to make that next level jump, you kind of have to kind of solidify yourself in the market. So it's smart on their part. So hope it goes well for them.
I agree. Let's go into something that me and Brant want to talk about. And as Archie Comics finally has another mini series coming out, this is Judgment Day. It's a horror book. I think there's like multiverse stuff going on. I think, or maybe I'm confusing that with something else, but it is a horror book. And it has demons and stuff like that. But I'll probably give this a try. It's been a while since Archie's had a book period that's not shorts. So it's nice that they're trying to do something again.
Yeah, I knew they were ramping up to do more with the horror line, which has proved popular for them. So I'm definitely going to check it out as well. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it sticks around. And yeah,
I think last time they had it was like one shots, wasn't it? Like wasn't it like Veronica or Betty like one shots or
Girl.
Like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which I don't love. I like a good full story. So
right.
Oh, we got some thoughts here about, we're gonna get into trailers, but probably not this trailer, so I'll mention it. Any opinions on the Wicked movie getting 2 parts because of me thinking this is a bad idea, in my opinion? It's a long play. I actually recently saw it for wink wink reasons that we teased in our newsletter. There might be something related to our fairy tale stuff we're doing that's related to Wicked / Wizard of Oz. So I've actually seen it recently, and it's a long play. So I guess it makes sense to make it 2 parts. There is in the play when the act is over, it makes sense that there could be a second movie. There's like a pretty big time jump. So I think it's interesting. It honestly looked really good. The trailer, I was actually pretty surprised by just how expensive it looked and the music sounding good. So I thought the trailer looked pretty solid.
I liked it. I've never seen the show.
Wicked.
I've never seen it. We've had an opportunity to see it a couple times down here in Central Florida because they always have Broadway shows here. But it's just maybe not the right time of the year to go, or it's super expensive to go see it. And I've always wanted to see it, but seeing that trailer, it looked really good. Like it was no joke. So I will definitely be seeing that on Thanksgiving when that thing comes out.
For sure. I think it's going to be a huge movie. We do have a couple of questions here about Wicked. So one day I'll make it to the Big Apple. Yeah, I did see it on Broadway. I live in New York, so we see Broadway shows a good amount of time, which is fun to kind of have that in your backyard. And the play's been on Broadway for such a long time. I remember when it first came out, it's kind of crazy. It's still there. But there's a reason. You do watch the play, it's this moves really well. This is a good show, and the music's really, really good. And Tevye asks, isn't part 2 Wizard of Oz? It's not. None of it really is Wizard of Oz. Dorothy doesn't even show up in the whole story. So it's based on Wizard of Oz in that world, but it's not. It doesn't ever go into Wizard of Oz. Well, we have a lot of questions here. So my parents went to New York City and watched the Book of Mormon, also a show I've seen as very solid. That's a solid show for sure. We got some other questions. Let's do the movie questions first. The only trailer we will talk about later is Deadpool. So I'll answer these questions because we don't have them planned to talk about. We have Planet of the Apes, and then there's the question of Dune 2, if we're going to go see it. I never saw Dune 1. It never interests me. And I like Planet of the Apes, but I didn't watch the trailer. I'll go see the movie when it's out. But other than that, that's all my opinions on those.
I did not see the trailer for Planet of the Apes, but I will see it. I've seen all of them. I really like those movies. And I actually really like the first Dune, so I'll see that as well.
I never saw the first Dune, so I don't have anything to say about that. We got a question also about Madam Web movie.
I was saving that one. So the Bronze Page does ask about the Infernals comic, which we'll talk about, and then Madam Web the movie. I have my tickets for Thursday. I know it's going to be a train wreck, but I'm very excited for the train wreck. I honestly, I don't want anything to be bad, but I hope it's so bad that I have a fun time with it. Honestly, I've seen a lot of bad movies recently because it's January, so there's just a lot of things that are not that great. So I'm just kind of used to it. Yeah, so we've seen a lot of bad movies, but Madam Web, I'm expecting absolutely nothing from. But I hope I have a good time. And then we'll go back to the Madam Web conversation for you guys. But Infernals is the new Ryan Parrott book, so I'm looking forward to it. But I don't know much about it, so other than it's a Ryan Parrott book.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it either. I'm trying to remember what it looks like. I can't even. When does that come out?
This week.
Soon.
It's it's this week. It's a horror book. It's the Son of Satan. Something having to do with the Son of Satan. I don't remember the details, but
I don't remember if I put it on my list. The problem is this week is a huge ass week for comics.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of issue ones that I know for sure. It was actually hard to make the most anticipated list because there's actually a lot of books I was looking forward to. I'm looking to see how much I have because that's a really determinant of how many books are coming out. I have 3, 6, 9. I have about 12 books. But yeah, a lot of them are big. You have your Kill Your Darlings, your Transformers, again, a good amount of issue ones, Batman. Honestly, there's probably 1 or 2 I probably would have picked up if it wasn't so large of a week. But I was like, man, it's too big of a week. But Madam Web, you guys gonna go see it?
Oh yeah.
I feel you have to, right? I haven't seen Morbius though, so that's the only one I haven't seen.
I want to see it. I just don't know if I'll get around to seeing it. Just because it's just one of those movies where it's like, yeah, I want to see it, but
no one else does.
Am I going? Yeah, no one else wants it. My son will want to see it. But it's just a matter of us being able to get the time to go and see it together. It might be one of those movies that I might have to stream or something like that, but we'll see. I mean, certain things surprise me. So
I didn't even see Aquaman. That was how bad it's been.
I didn't even see Aquaman 1.
Oh shit! Well, there you go. You didn't see Aquaman 1.
No.
I just didn't hear anything about that second movie. Like no one was talking about it at all. So I'm like, you know what? I'm good. And I just wasn't excited to see it. The only superhero movies I haven't seen that were recent releases were Eternals, New Mutants, Morbius, and now Aquaman. Those are the only ones I haven't seen.
I've seen all of those that you just mentioned, but except Aquaman. I haven't seen Aquaman 2 yet,
new.
But I did see the rest of them, and I didn't like Morbius at all. But Madam Web, I'm more like Mike. I want to see it, but whether I'm going to see it in the theater or not, it's really up in the air. So.
If I didn't have that AMC stubs, I don't think I would be convincing anybody to go see Madam Web. But I pretty much said, hey guys, don't you want to see this crazy movie that has nothing to do with the comics? So I keep explaining to them like who Madam Web is. I'm like, yeah, she's an old lady who's blind. It's like, but that's not this movie. I'm like, exactly. And that's what's so fun about this.
It's funny because it's Madam Web when she was younger.
Right. Yeah. But also you have like Maddie Franklin, like who knows who she is? We do because we've been reading comics forever. But like we have Maddie Franklin and then like, Julia Carpenter at least is a fun character. But again, most people don't know who she is.
But it doesn't line up though, right? Like Madam Web is supposed to be old woman.
Right.
And like all these other characters didn't exist. Like it's just weird how they exist and she's young. It doesn't line up. So I don't understand how they're going to, I don't know, mesh that all together.
They won't. I think that's definitely the answer.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I want to see if there's
mean-
any like teases though. Like, what's the post-credit scene of Madam Web?
If there is there one?
It has to be. It's a superhero. Let me look it up. I'm not gonna look up what it actually is, but
it's weird because in the Sonyverse, you know, we've only seen Spider-Man, and then there's Venom just out of nowhere. Then Morbius somehow exists here, but then all of a sudden, all these other characters are just running around.
Right.
There's no post-credit scene, guys.
See, I told you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's sad. That's really shows they got nothing going on for this movie.
They don't know what to do. I think that's just what it is, and
that's
I don't know, man. This movie's gonna be weird. Hey, I most recently got that first appearance of Madam Web comic too.
Oh, it's gonna go up in price because of this.
No, it's not. It's already done, and I think
gonna
everybody is like selling it because they're trying to sell it before the movie tanks.
It's funny that I was talking to my friend who just bought the Dune popcorn bucket, and we won't go into details of why the Dune popcorn bucket is going a little viral now, but it looks a little strange in many ways. But so a lot of people are like interested in this Dune popcorn bucket. And it's like, I'm guessing, people are buying it and they're trying to sell it out. So my friend was like, oh, I'm going to sell it like years from now and I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm like, no. That's not how this market works. Sell it right before the movie because that is going to be the highest price it is. Because a year from now, everyone's going to forget Dune was a movie.
Yeah. The cool thing is I wanted that issue for the longest time.
I just saw it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's not a great looking bucket.
Screen share it. I want to see it.
All right, guys. I will say not safe for work.
What's funny is all I typed in was DU, and that was the first thing that came up.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. Just to give you guys what it looks like.
Right.
It's $60 there.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
something.
The bucket. Yeah.
Hey.
That's
Good
so hopefully
stuff,
hopefully YouTube doesn't see that as any inappropriate.
I don't think so.
I'm just joking. But no, but I think it's interesting because I really truly believe the market plays that way. Because you see it with comics all the time where it's just like, oh, the movie's coming out, but is Madam Web gonna be anything a year from now? It's hardly a thing now. So I think you gotta play by the times here. like, because there's certain things like if you get like a Beatles autograph, like that's going to be something that's worth over time more and more money as they pass away. But like a Dune popcorn bucket, sell it now.
That's it ain't anything. That's like, see, for me, like the Madam Web comic book is, I think it will always have some kind of value. A couple years ago it was going through the roof, but for me, I just wanted it to fill in a gap in my Amazing Spider-Man collection, so that's what it is for me.
Let's get into our next comic thing, but we are going to do a Q&A guys later. So after the news, we're going to do Q&A, talk about our past on YouTube. So get your questions ready for then. But yes, we have Marvel. No, actually, let's talk about the new Ultimate Bullseye being revealed in Ultimate Spider-Man. I am going to screen share it so you guys can see. It's interesting. I think I saw it on Mike's Facebook group that someone was saying like, oh, Marvel's going to really milk this cow. We're going to see so many Ultimate Universe titles after this, which, yeah, I think we are. Because I really, I hope they're all solid. And we'll talk about Black Panther obviously later. But if it's good, give me more Ultimate Universe titles. I don't mind. But yeah, this is I like the design. I think it looks cool. Looks modern.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, if it's selling and people are enjoying it, they're gonna continue to introduce characters. People are gonna want to buy it because first appearances in this universe and whatnot. So I mean, listen, anything that has to do with this particular Spider-Man book too for Ultimate Universe, I think is going to be really, really popular. As long as it's written well, people are going to buy it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I was talking to my store about this. I was talking to the manager, and we were talking about like why is Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther doing well, and I think there is also, obviously it sucks that a lot of spec buyers are buying it, but there's this idea that's like the one Marvel comic you could buy if you've never read a Marvel comic or never read a superhero book. You don't need a prior knowledge to read these books, and I miss comics like that, and I think that's why it's successful too. There's not a lot of yet convolution to it.
No, that's what's great. We always talk about like, hey, where do you jump on board with a comic book? Well, there you go. There's your history. Issue 1. That's all it is. Ultimate Spider-Man.
I mean, that's why the original Ultimate Universe did so well, and that's why the DC New 52 at first did well. It's the same concept. You're starting from scratch. You don't have to have any prior knowledge or anything. So.
Yep, absolutely.
We have a question from Tevia. We will answer again more of the other questions later. Any opinion on what happened in the old comic front line? Why it sort of fell apart? We did it. We'll talk more about like what comic front line was before. There were other members of this, and we'll go into the origins. But I'll answer this quickly. Is that it's the opposite of it. We wanted to streamline this show and not make it 5 hours long. And it's a more successful show because of it. We were getting like 200 hits back in the day. And now, we get a couple of thousand between the two channels. So, like it's a more streamlined show, and I'm proud of that.
We'll talk about it more later, but it works better for us these days.
Then we'll talk about like what our goals were back then, what our goals are now, blah, 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 blah. So Tevia also asks you, with Ultimate Spider-Man being a massive success and just destroying Amazing Spider-Man sales, which we don't know at all, do you believe Marvel will finally listen and let the main book improve? We don't know what the sales are. That's the whole point again of modern comics right now, is we don't know if Ultimate Spider-Man beat Amazing Spider-Man, and honestly, we'll never know unless Marvel says, "Hey, it beat Amazing Spider-Man. Let's change something up."
My gut says yes.
Sure, yeah,
right, but you don't truly ever know. And the only problem is
it's hard with an issue 1 too.
With Amazing Spider-Man, the main series, it's going to run its course. There's already a plan in place. There's a story still to be told there, so they're not going to automatically just change something, right? And then also you have to find another writer, and you have to find another illustrator, and you got to find, everything that goes along with it. Now, listen, I don't know if they'll ever change the main Marvel Universe Spider-Man. There's so much that has been changed based off of the last couple writers that it would have to take a lot to change it to get back to the way it was. So listen, I don't care if it's Ultimate or regular,
just
right?
Make it a good story.
You wanted them together, they're together. Who gives a shit? As long as it's a good story, that's what matters.
I agree. Yeah. Make everyone happy,
right.
For people, the very few people who want Mary Jane and Peter not to be together, they're not together in Amazing Spider-Man. And for the people who do want them together, they're here in the Ultimate Universe. And I agree, like, who cares? Like, why pit them against each other? Like, I think it's the easy answer. Like, Amazing Spider-Man's better, or this is better. Why can't we just enjoy both at the same time?
Enjoy both, or enjoy the one you want to read. That's why they make multiple Spider-Man books or multiple Batman books, because you pick one that you want to read. You don't have to read all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had a big conversation about Jackpot about 2 weeks ago. So if you guys want that conversation, check that out. Speaking of Ultimate Spider-Man, so this was interesting news that Chip Zdarsky was actually supposed to be the original writer, which honestly, I think that would be so
happy
cool.
that he's not.
Right, because we'll talk about Batman. But it would have been an interesting thing because I really liked his life story stuff. But at the same time, like Jonathan Hickman's just been so surprising. And I think obviously it has a lot to do with a lot of things. I'm sure it's not just Hickman. I'm sure it's editorial and whatever. But it seems really streamlined, and it's a great book so far. So yeah, I agree. Like I think it's cool that Hickman has really subverted expectations.
Yeah, and then, heads up to Zdarsky for sitting there and going, hey, this is a story that sounds like it's right up Hickman's alley. So he passed it up so he could write it. And now Hickman is like totally happy that he's writing it. So I think that that's a good call on Chip's part, to not sit there and take it, because in all reality, I wasn't a huge fan of his Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man that he wrote. I just wasn't a fan of that run.
Was that Tom Taylor did something too? Was that?
Yeah.
I don't remember which one he did. Was that Tom Taylor did Spectacular? Because I remember Chip Zdarsky did Life Story for sure.
I'm trying to remember what he did.
Yeah.
No, I thought Zdarsky did do that Spectacular Spider-Man book.
Let's look it up. Spectacular.
I know Tom
the
Taylor
problem
did
is,
something. Yeah.
He definitely did. I don't remember what, but maybe it was Chip Zdarsky who did Spectacular Spider-Man. The issue with comics is there's too many of them to keep track. Let's see. This is volume 4. Yeah, this was it. So 2019 was, believe it or not, it ended with not him writing it. So Sean Ryan wrote the last part of Spectacular. Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. Oh my. Okay, let's see who wrote the first one. Yeah, Chip Zdarsky did write that one. Okay, but he didn't write it for long. What did Tom Taylor write?
Tebby is saying
he wrote Friendly Neighborhood.
Oh, Friendly Neighborhood. That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it was.
They all were so similar to each other.
Yeah. I just remember not loving the story that Tom Taylor did either. So it was like,
right.
Yeah.
No, I remember that as well. All right, let's get into the next thing here. We're talking on Jonathan Hickman. Everything's connected this week. Hickman is going to be doing a series, Doom issue 1. So it's Dr. Doom versus Galactus, which again, speaking of, it's a one shot. Okay. So it's not a mini series, just a one shot. But speaking of wheelhouses of,
yeah, exactly.
Of Hickman, it's this. If you liked his Fantastic Four, if you liked the Secret Wars situation, go check this thing you liked about those two series.
Yeah. Plus, when you're dealing with Galactus, you're talking straight up sci-fi stuff, which is right in his pocket.
Yeah.
Which I probably won't pick up, but I'm glad it exists for people who likes those things.
Yeah, sure.
It's a one shot. I'll check it out because it's Doom. I love Doom, and I like Galactus, and I just love seeing these smaller heroes / villains go against a freaking gigantic planet eater. Like, I always find it improbable that someone can win against this thing, right? It's just like going back to Thor when Donny Cates wrote it and he destroyed Galactus from the first, second issue.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my God, that's insane. So I want to see what this issue definitely has to offer.
Yeah. I mean, Squirrel Girl beat Galactus too at one point. So
that's true.
Everybody.
So what does that mean?
Yeah. That's I have no judgment on that one there. Say that right there.
We have our last comic news piece before we get into Deadpool. Marvel teases. So obviously, also guys, get your questions ready for the Q&A section. But Marvel teases 20 Blood Hunt tie-in comics coming. Oh my! For an event that no one asked for. This is hard because this event was obviously lining up for the Blade movie. That is not happening right now. So to have this event that was for a promotion of a movie that's not happening, I'm already feel a little jaded of the event. And then to hear there's 20 tie-ins to it, I'm like, oh my. Look, I'm going to give issue 1 a shot. Maybe I'll give some of the tie-ins a shot if there's characters I like, but I don't know, guys.
Isn't Gang War, though, pretty much the same thing when it comes to tie-ins?
There was only 3. There was Daredevil. There was Luke Cage.
But are you talking is it 20 separate comics or is it 20 separate,
they have a chart.
Series?
Let's see. They have... Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's series. Because if you look at the chart, it says limited series, one-shot series tie-ins.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 limited series, 6 one-shots, and then 7 series tie-ins. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's like Fear Itself level right there.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God.
Gang War had 3.
I thought you were
maybe
talking
a few tie-ins.
I thought you were talking it's 3 separate series with 4 or 5 issues.
Right, exactly.
And I was saying, that's not bad. Wow.
That's crazy, because that's going to be a lot more if it's like, let's say it's 3-issue limited series and there's, whatever, how many ever I said.
Oh
I don't
my
remember,
God.
7, whatever it was. That's a lot of books.
And
That's
also,
so
like,
many books.
it kind of forces you to read this event because it seems like it's also tying into a lot of books that you might be reading. Obviously it will tie into Blade. It'll probably tie into, like, honestly, somehow Miles Morales is always tying into something. So I'm like, Miles Morales will somehow.
He was Blade's friend most recently with his suit, so that's definitely going to tie it. But it looks like this is going to be an event that's tying into the entire Marvel universe. So
and
you're right.
Affects it.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is going to affect like a lot of the books.
Which I don't know how to feel, because a lot of time, sometimes it's done right. You have that Venom event that I think did a really good job of bringing things together. Beast World, another huge example of a book that, we talked about that did a great job of bringing the universe together and having a reason to do so. Blade? I don't know. I don't know if he needs to bring the universe together.
I've been reading the Blade series, and I think it's been pretty good. Mm-hmm. But listen, I think I'm just going to do what I did with Beast World. And, I guess I might try the issue 1s and just see what it is. And if they suck, they suck. I mean, it's like DC's been doing a lot of these tie-ins too. They had their vampire series last year, and the main one was pretty good, but like the rest of the stuff wasn't that great. And so, God, man, that's a lot of money. That's hard. That's really hard to sit there and say, oh, I'm going to pick all those up. I don't. It's got to really enhance the story. It would really have to. If it's just
a character that just doesn't get a lot of spotlight. Like if you're like giving me a Julie Power miniseries, yeah, I'll go check it out. But if you're giving me a Daredevil miniseries, nah, I've seen enough,
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is like they're all going to be fucking vampires.
But again, we've seen it a billion times. DC's done it. Marvel's done it. I don't need to see them as vampires. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. So I just might get the books that if it attaches to the books that I currently read, fine. Yeah. If it's going extra, it's going to be a little bit tough.
Yeah. And I mean, it'll depend on the characters, the creative teams. I mean, obviously the main series is written by Jed MacKay. I'm going to definitely check that out. But beyond that, we'll just have to see, because we don't know the details about any of those series.
Yeah. So. I'm sure they'll slowly get like revealed as time goes along.
They have already. I think there's 3 of them, but I didn't add it because they were like Captain Britain, like people we don't read.
Yeah.
So I didn't add them. But they weren't anything that were too interesting. All right, well, let's get into the last news piece, and then me and Brent will talk about our Kickstarters, and then we'll do our little celebration. But Deadpool trailer. So this is the one we are all looking forward to for the Super Bowl. And I really liked it. I think it was the same tone as those first 2. You got the hype of Wolverine, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope it takes away from this Marvel dry spell that we've been feeling for a while.
I watched it just a minute ago when you mentioned trailers, and I was like, "Oh crap! I have to watch the trailer." So, I couldn't hear all the dialogue, obviously, but it did what it was supposed to do, right? It gave enough to get you anticipating, seeing Wolverine and Deadpool together. So that's all it needed to do for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just from what I saw, I was excited just to see Deadpool again. It's been a while, and I think this is going to be the movie that I think gets people excited about.
I think so.
Marvel again, and just to see, was it a TVA that was in there?
Loki stuff.
And it shows you like it's connected to Loki and how the time streams are messed up and shit like that. So like, I think that's pretty cool how they're tying that into it. And I think this movie, if it's done right, this will get people excited and get back into the theaters to see Marvel movies again.
And the viewership of the trailer did really, really well. So again, it's already obviously because it also was shown during the Super Bowl. A lot of people were watching the Super Bowl, so I think that helps that they did it in the right time. Will Deadpool bring Marvel back to life? Yeah, like we said, we hope so. I think it needs it. It's interesting because I think the Marvels just hit on Disney Plus recently, and everyone and their moms had opinion on the Marvels, and I still think so many people are so harsh on that movie. I genuinely think it's such a fun movie. I think there is still Marvel overload though. And it's interesting there, She-Hulk. I mean, I didn't watch She-Hulk. I have no opinions on it, but She-Hulk was trending on Twitter. I'm like, why? And it was because they're comparing it to Deadpool and She-Hulk. They're like, oh, if Deadpool did all these things that She-Hulk did, then everyone would think it's funny. But for some reason that She-Hulk did it, people didn't find it funny. But I think obviously the big difference of that too is that She-Hulk's visuals were really bad. So at least Deadpool has like movie quality look to it. So I think that definitely helps.
It's different. You can't compare the two.
No.
If you were to put She-Hulk on the big screen and give it the budget and the time, you can make that a really good movie. You really, really could.
Yeah.
I only saw like 2 episodes of She-Hulk, and I was less like, I was annoyed after the second episode, so I don't know.
So those are trailers. So let's get in our Kickstarters, and then we'll go into our anniversary stuff. So Brant, tell us about your Kickstarter. I think you're live for how much longer?
Mine ended yesterday.
So. Oh, well, then there you go. You already ended. I remember you had the indie bundle, so I was just like, oh, you must be live for another day. Guess not.
No, we unlocked them the last day, so I was like, oh yeah, I gotta add books to that. So we hit all those like that last day. We unlocked all that stuff. So
yeah, recap for everybody. How did you do on the Kickstarter?
So we were 209% funded, so over double funded. So successful, and we're happy about that. So we get to send some lenticular covers out, and we made really close to 5K. So it's a decent one for this book. So yeah, happy with it, and thank you to anyone here that may have supported it.
Yeah. I have 2 Kickstarters live. One's not mine, but it's one we wrote, and then one is mine that we also wrote. But I'll plug the one that I didn't promote last time because it wasn't live. So let me pull it up. So this book is called Bombshell in Atomica. So this is published by Bad Bug Media, and if you guys like superheroes, it's our take on superheroes. We got 1950s time period. It's a queer, not safe for work book about these 2 women who kind of have forbidden love and how their husbands deal with it. And it's a really fun book. Bad Bug gave a lot of room for us to kind of do what we want. They literally just told us we want 2 women who have powers in 1950s, and the rest we were able to do ourselves. So it's really, if you like Lifeline comics, you'll enjoy all this stuff. So go check that out. Now let's get into, I just stopped screen sharing, Nightmare Wonderland, which is our book that we do publish. And here it is. It's doing so above our expectations. It's about an assassinalis who rescues her childhood friend Sleeping Beauty from a nightmare version of Wonderland. If you liked Beast and Snow, it's in the same universe, but you don't need to read Beast and Snow to understand this. We are dollars away from 40,000. It'd be really cool if we hit that today, but we've been a week live, over 1,000 backers, $40,000. It's been a crazy ride. We have some really cool covers as well. We have the artist from By the Horns from Scout Comics. We have Connor Hughes, who's done some Walking Dead covers. Bob Quinn, who's the interior artist of Kill Your Darlings. And then we have Skylar Patridge, who's done Wonder Woman. So go check that all out. I'll have the links in the comments. So let's get into the Q&A section. Let's talk about what this is.
Yeah, before we do that, real quick, did we want to do the announcement?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so it's not ready just yet, but we are going to launch YouTube memberships. We got approved for it today, so we'll be launching those soon. So be on the lookout for that. So hopefully next week or the week after, we'll have all that set up and ready to go. So
I also see a few questions about the Kickstarters, so let me answer that. Let's see. I think Tevia asks, how do they get their powers? This is for Bombshell. You gotta read it.
Read it, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can't
Go
spoil
check out the
that.
Kickstarter. Yeah.
We do show their origins, so you go check it out, and it's a fun book if you like superheroes. So, and again, nothing. What I always describe this of, because I always feel like people get a little nervous with the not safe for work stuff. It's not, it has sex, it has nudity, but it's very Game of Thrones in that way. There's story. Story is always first, and that's something we always wanted to do, was just make it like a Game of Thrones book. It's a book that so happens to have nudity, so go check out both books. But yeah, let's dive in. Where do we, Brant, you reminded us that it is our anniversary, so why don't you tell a little bit of our origin story of Comic Book Weekly.
Okay, so I'll come in from my perspective, because obviously you two had connected previously, but
Right.
For me, I found Chris through my now wife, who was then just my friend,
Which you should say who Chris is as well.
Yeah. Chris is a former cast member. He's actually the one that kind of pulled us all together, I think. I don't know. Maybe you two started before. I don't remember how the show actually
we
came
knew
together.
each other before Chris, but Chris and Mike got together and said, let's do a show.
Yeah, we started a show before even Dark Avenger.
So Chris, Dark Avenger C86, I started watching his content at the recommendation of Lisa, who is now my wife, and Chris and I started chatting a little bit, and I think I came in on the second episode of the show. Maybe. Yeah,
it was very early on. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was like the first or second episode. I was already there, and I thought it was like this thing that had been going for a little bit. It was very early, and Chris was like, "Oh, come on!" And I'd been writing and like editing for a website called comicrelated.com. At the time, I was like, journalist and everything, and eventually Kat like super surpassed me in that area. Our site died and went away, and I just shifted. But
and then none of us do journalism now.
Yeah, exactly. And I was doing a podcast, and that Chris started listening to my podcast, and he's like, "You should come on our show." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't really do video." And he's like, "Yeah, you'll have fun." So I came on, and it's like this huge cast of people, and I just kind of faded in the background, and eventually, here I am. So that was kind of how I got introduced to everybody. It was on live. It was like right before live, I met everybody, and it was like I didn't know any of you all. It was like I was so nervous that I didn't know what was going on. But that was kind of the thing, and it was we were trying to get together this show where we just talked about comics, and it was a huge cast at the time. I don't remember.
Too big.
It was like 8 of us, I think, something like that. It was something crazy. Yeah. And Google Hangouts was a thing, and
that's when it started. Google Hangouts. Yeah. That's why we did it.
Yeah, exactly. So Google Hangouts launched, and we started doing a live show on Tuesday nights, and we've been live Tuesday nights ever since, and that was over 10 years ago. So
yeah, it's crazy because life goes on and life passes you by. And when I was graduating high school, was the first time I did the live show. I'm 29 freaking years old. So it's obviously time passes for you guys too, but it's interesting to have your whole entire adulthood through this.
It's funny. I was also not in Texas. I've been in Texas since 2014. I'll be in Texas 10 years in July, and I was still living in Kentucky when we started the show. So
it's crazy.
I mean, when I go back and I see everything, it's kind of weird because I started my YouTube channel, Comic Book Corner, the original one.
2.0.
Because everyone always asks, why is your channel called 2.0? Was there one before that? And I'm like, yeah, there actually was. I had like 3,000 subscribers on that one at the time. But then I was stupid because I was using music that I wasn't supposed to. Yeah. So it was like copyright content and just it was all disorganized and stuff like that. But I kid you not, like after a week that I started doing YouTube, I met Chris. And like, and it was just like, we came up with a group channel. It was called, God, I forgot what it was called. It was like something, I don't know, some kind of weird name. But anyway, it was just like, and we did it with other people where they posted their videos. Right.
Wasn't it like 3 C's or something? I remember Chris talking about this.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, there was like other people around.
Right. Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And so Chris and I decided to come out with another channel. Like the same thing. And then that's how this whole thing just started, right? But even before
was
that,
Dark Avenger Inc. at that time.
Yeah, Dark Avenger Inc. Because we did a sub channel from his. But even before that, the funny thing is I knew Kat from Comic Vine, and Kat was like super young. She was like fucking 16 years old.
Yeah, I was in high school.
It was crazy. And so, and we just communicated through, like, she posted videos on there, like reviews on there. And we just communicated based off of, oh yeah, I like this issue too. Yes, this was a good book. And so we just kept on contact with that. And then, like, eventually then I told Chris about Kat, and then we started this way. And then Chris started with Brant, and then that's how, like, the whole thing wound up starting, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and then fast forward all this time, and we're the three that are still together after this long time.
Yeah. We were the ones who, continue to want to do, the show, but also, again, I think we had a vision of what we wanted the show to be. And that's why we've stuck together, the three of us, and why, we won't be disappearing anytime soon, is just because it took 10 years to kind of figure it out, but it was helpful, because then we figured out a very streamlined show. It never really goes over 2 hours, but we talk about a lot of cool stuff. We title things better. We have better thumbnails.
Titles.
And not better conversations. You don't want to compare, but we're going to say about titles.
I was going to say, we used to call it was Dark Avenger Live was the first one, and it would change names every week. I remember we could never remember what we called it the previous week. So it was like Dark Avenger Live Dark Avenger. It was this and that. And then it was Comic Frontline Live. Then it was just Frontline Live. And so it took us a while to figure things out. Mike mentioned copyright strikes. We were getting copyright strikes all the time back in
trailers.
The day. We would show trailers. We would just stream live stuff all the time.
And again, the show was like 5 hours long. It would be like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be like, oh, we were having fun, but how would anyone be able to watch the show? So that's kind of how, if you guys ever wonder, like, where members have gone, it really was just mostly, either people falling out of comics or just how we wanted to go in the direction of the show. And the three of us saw a vision, and that's why we stuck with the vision. And and that's how we've kind of like found each other. And also it's just like we talked about comics in a similar way, but also we had different enough opinions that it makes it interesting.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, like, in Comic Frontline, right, was a channel that all the members used to upload videos on.
Right.
So there used to be a bunch of content on there, and then it would be our live show. But for some reason, the channel itself never worked out, and we can never really figure out why. And maybe it was because after we thought about it, there was too much different content going on there. And so we decided that we would go our separate ways when it came to the actual channel, and then just do the live shows and leave it at that, so we can all focus on our own individual projects. Plus, we've all gotten a lot more busy in our life as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you mentioned that, because it's like, even with Dark Avenger, I remember back in the day, it was like, if you come on the show, there's a requirement. You got to do 1 video a week.
Right.
Do you guys remember this? Yeah. So we had to do a video of like a comic book review or something every single week, whether we lived up to it or not. Probably not. But
I think there was many times we faltered.
But that was kind of the thing, and we carried that over into Comic Frontline at the beginning, and and then we like created all these different series. I remember we launched with like 5 or 6 series, and we were just trying to do so much stuff, and there was so many voices and so many different ideas, and there was no cohesion there, I think, ultimately, with what we were trying to present to everybody. And so over time, we just concised and condensed, and finally found a formula that kind of worked for the ones that remained. So
and it's true what they say, more is not always better. right? And in this case, when it comes to this show, I think that's ultimately that's what it is. And Highland Low Roller says, "I'm surprised you haven't thrown in a towel." The reason is because in all reality, we really do love doing this show, and we love each other's company. Think about it. We're friends, and we've been friends for years.
A decade.
Think about how long we've been in touch with each other. You see a lot of these live shows that have been on air that may do better than us or whatever the case may be. I don't know why. Maybe we're just not as entertaining, right? But the thing is I can guarantee you most people have not done a live show longer than us, right? No. And we've been doing this for Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. forever because of me. Honestly, that's what it is, because originally my wife had to work Tuesday nights, and while she was at work and the kids went to sleep, that's when we started the show. And it was like that for the longest time. And we just decided to stick with it after all this time too. Might not be the ideal time, right? But at the end of the day, if you really want to watch the show, you'll watch it post live anyway.
And it just, and now the time slot, obviously we baked it into our schedule. So that's a reason why, but it just like, it makes sense for like, oh, comics are over, you know, that way we don't spoil it for people. The week is over. Let's talk about the comics. Let's talk about the news, get excited for the next day of comics. It just always made sense to us. And and what Mike was saying, we were all friends first, and that's why we haven't thrown in the towel. We genuinely just have fun talking. And we've gone through a lot of life with each other, so we're friends, you know. And it's interesting because I think we started this as like, we want to be in the business of comic journalism, and you know, me and Brent in particular did that for a while, and I think we found our path in comics in different ways. Obviously we do a lot of Kickstarters and stuff like that, but this isn't a job anymore, and I think that's why this exists and why it's so fun. I think back in the day we were seeing it as a job of how to become better comic people, and now this is the one avenue, at least for me personally. I do a lot in comics, and this is the one place that I could find where it's just, I remember the hobby, you know, like I just genuinely could just have fun with comics.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Brent.
I was just gonna say, we all started doing the show for the fun of it, I think, and then at some point we realized there was potential, and I think we all started working towards that potential, and it's like, oh, we can make this something. And again, Kat and I were doing journalism and other things as well. And we saw the potential in that. And I think somewhere along the lines, we kind of got lost in that aspect of it. And once we got back to that, oh, let's just have fun and talk some comics. It made it a little easier. And then if we make some money, you know, from it, cool, you know, but that's not like the end game with this anymore. So.
Right.
No, it literally is just to talk about comics. And I think that's what you guys enjoy about it too. And again, it's just so interesting to see how things have changed so much, because it was like, oh, well, how do you you know, talk about comics in a way that makes it your job. And here it's like therapeutically talking about comics, and it makes such a difference for sure. And you know, everyone in our lives, and I can speak on everybody, understands that too, where it's like, I'll say I have my Tuesday live show and everyone gets it, you know. It's just like, you have your show that you enjoy talking about comics with people. Like, I get it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like I said, our focus has changed on what it was like when we saw how Comic Frontline was doing. Like, it just wasn't working the way that we wanted to. Then we diverted our attention elsewhere. And when I finally, it's kind of funny because it's like I had a thought of what I wanted to do, right? But I'm only one person in a large group. So it's just like, okay, let me divert what I want to do onto my channel, because there was a time where I totally abandoned Comic Book Corner 2.0 to put the energy into Comic Frontline, and it just still wasn't working. As much as I was doing my share and my part and all that stuff, it just did not work on a group channel level. Now, who's to say though that this might work better if we were actually physically together? It might be a completely different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, the only time that any of us were together, I think Kat was with Chris one time, and then me and Kat were together at MegaCon, and we did a was it a live stream or was it a video?
I think it was a video. I think
it was a video. I think.
Yeah, and it was a blast. It was like so much fun to do it. No, who's to say that we might not do that again? But
I hope so.
Yeah,
it's still the dream.
Yeah.
But it's just, again, we diverted our attention elsewhere to do our own projects, and you can see, how successful we have all been in our own ways. With you guys doing Kickstarters, my channel has grown exponentially since being able to focus on that channel. So, and I'm happy to, have this stream on my channel as well as Comic Frontline as well. And it's just fun doing this show. I love doing it. It's just a blast,
And just get our opinions on like that week's comics. Be like, you read an issue, be like, oh, I wonder what Brian and Mike think about like Spider-Man this week.
Yeah.
It makes it more of a community thing too, because I could read my comics and just close it and then never think about it again. But it's fun that we have this show where you could just make it live past just the read. And
and it's also, I mean, when we talk about friendship and stuff, and it's like we don't just talk on Tuesday nights either. We have a Facebook chat group that's just the three of us, and we're anytime we find something cool or there's something we want to talk about, Kat and I will often chat after the show for like an hour. Mike's called me a couple times here and there. Sometimes too. And it's just, we talk all the time, and we're so close friends. And I don't have, like, since I moved to Texas, I don't know a lot of people here. And I don't know anybody that likes comics here. So I don't have like people to chat with here. So Kat and Mike are it. That's who I talk to about comics. So, it's just, over the years we've grown very close, and we've shared a lot of personal, private moments together and stuff like that. So I think that makes it stronger too.
Yeah, it's almost like a family. I will answer this question because Tevi has been asking about it, and he's asking about Jay, who was another YouTuber, and he was also on this show, and he was on this show for quite a long time. He was part of the team, and unfortunately, though, when it came to Jay, it was one of those things where sometimes you don't always see eye to eye on certain things. And it was for the best interest in the group that we did just part ways. It wasn't the easiest thing.
It's probably the hardest thing we've done in this thing.
Exactly. It was very hard. Because for a while it was like 5 of us. It was Chris and Jay and us 3, and it got to the point where it got difficult to do a show. Sometimes it got toxic, and it was just not a right place. And we had to make a hard decision, and it's just one of those things where we just parted ways.
And I think it was just better for everybody. I think sometimes you just personalities clash, and a lot of the viewers were seeing that. So you do what's best in that. And when it comes to Chris and Michael, they just grew in different things for comics. Like there was nothing negative there. So I also want to say that they left on their own accord. But when it came to Jay, that's just part of life,
Michael's doing his own kind of content outside of comics, and that's cool for him. And Chris just recently started getting back into doing the comic content, and he's on TikTok and stuff, and that's cool. I think he gave us a shout out recently, so that was cool of him. And as far as what happened to Jay, I don't know. We talk. I think he messages us a couple of times a year on holidays and stuff like that, and we're pleasant, So it's
wish the best for everybody,
absolutely. Absolutely. But we don't know really what's going on with them, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I feel like that's been a best kept secret for a very long time. It's something we don't normally talk about because, we always want to keep the show very positive. But no, I'm glad you brought it up, Mike. I think it's, it's part of the legacy too. And, again, we want everyone to be happy. That's definitely the biggest thing. And this is the show at this point and forever, honestly, it's where we all can be the happiest because, when it came to Chris and Michael, again, the opposite direction because we have stayed friends over the years and left on different accords for that. But we just had different passions for comics, you know, and I think that's what I think makes the three of us work really well is that our passion for comics is very similar. And I think that's why, you know, when it was the larger group, it was very different. You know, we're doing the shows for different reasons. And we see very eye to eye of how to talk about comics too. And I think that's what helps to make the show work.
I mean, it just shows at the same time, like how hard it is to do a live stream and, you know, have the longevity of a long stream too. There's some people that would throw in the towel and say, we're not making any money. We're not making any views. And this shows you that we're passionate and we really like what we do. I mean, there's a lot of planning that goes into this. You know, it's not like, oh, you just turn on the camera and you're good to go. It's like, you got to have the chemistry. You got to come up with what you're going to talk about. You got to come out with, you know, a plan for the show. There's just a lot involved that goes into it. And we've been doing it for 10 freaking years, man. That's a long time.
And with three of us, like the responsibilities are more than they were when there was more of us. So Kat, like she finds all the news and puts together the docs and everything. I do all the graphics and, you know, set up the show. And, you know, Mike does his thing with, I don't know, what do you do? I'm kidding.
I don't do
I'm
as
totally
much.
joking.
I don't do as much to set up the show. Obviously, when the ideas come up, like I put
you're the title guy in the end.
I'm the title
Usually
guy.
Mike does the title guy. Yeah, he kind of leads the show. You know, on the show, you do a lot. You lead and guide the show. You keep us all on task and everything. You kind of like gave us your channel as an additional platform to expand the audience and all that stuff. And there was a time, like you said, you poured a lot of content into the channel. So I didn't want to like diminish what you do for the show.
And I am the backup thumbnail guy.
You are.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes I just can't do it.
And and you're like, Mike, can you do it? And part of the issue is because when we are coming up with this stuff, I'm like working. So I'm like, I'm in tennis or I'm doing stuff like that. So, and then of course I got my own YouTube channel that I'm working on this stuff as well. So that makes it a little bit difficult, but
absolutely,
you know, so we all have our own roles in this, this whole thing,
which makes it work for sure. We had another question from Tevye here because again, Tevye's been here since day one, which is cool. He asked if there's old segments that come back. Topic time was when we did. Topic time is honestly in this show. So we've just kind of blended what we used to do with those videos here. So we talk about a topic that we like. So like this week is Joker Year One reason enough to pick up Batman? We're going to talk about that. So and will we ever do videos again? I can safely say no.
That's why we have our own channels now. Like, that's where because that's what was the problem. Like, we were like, why don't we just focus on our own stuff? And if you want to watch videos, go to our channels and the live stream will be on Comic Frontline. That's where it will be. Or you can watch it. Obviously, it's on my channel as well if you are a fan of my channel. So that's what that's what we presented, right? Where we're just like, there's no reason to put content on Comic Book Weekly, you know?
Yeah, the only exception is if it was like an announcement thing, if we were trying to promote something, I think, or if we were doing a special video for like, I don't know, for something, you know, member videos or, you know, something special. It wouldn't be like regular, like weekly content or anything like that.
I don't think. Definitely not. Tevye also asks, Media Madness, will you bring that back? No. Media Madness, you know, I'm happy for what the show was, for, you know, as many episodes as we did, but it was too much, man. I also don't consume as much media as I used to. I just don't have as much time. And I was not enjoying the show, and that's why we stopped it, you know? So you know, I'm not going to do something I didn't enjoy. And the three of us, we're not as much media people as we used to be. And anything I cover with media, I do on my Legendary Ladies podcast. So if you want to check that out, we covered media there.
We we talked about Jay. That was more of a Cat and Jay kind of thing, and so that's better left, just where it was. So
yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't want to touch that because also respecting him, that was something we both created together. So it would also feel a bit wrong to even use the name again. But again, I think it's just something. I like to consume media and not talk about everything I consume these days. Like if I go see, Madam Web, maybe I'll talk about it on my newsletter or something just because of work. But like, I don't need to give all my thoughts about Madam Web unless it's like axed here. But I don't need to do an hour show about it.
I remember though, like when we did the content on Comic Frontline, like all videos would get like under 100 views.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It'd be like 20
most
views, 30 views, 50 views. I remember I'd be like, I'm dumping all this time and effort and it's not getting crap. I was getting so
it made no sense.
Angry, but and I couldn't believe it. So it's so frustrating, And then you get a random video that does well. It was just so off the wall.
Speaking of Media Madness, there are like random episodes of that show that just blew up, and they're still on there somewhere. But it was frustrating because we tried everything. We tried different types of content. Chris and I did a bunch of podcasts on this channel.
Wrestling,
did wrestling, did TV stuff, movie stuff, video game stuff, everything under the sun, and just could not figure out a formula that worked.
But see, that's the thing. I think that's like I said.
We
tried doing too much stuff, and it couldn't figure out.
It wasn't focused.
What the channel was, right?
Exactly.
And we couldn't figure out. You guys definitely couldn't figure it out. So we appreciate, especially Tevye. Look, we appreciate you've been here for the whole time. But like comics, I think there's stuff that you could be nostalgic of. But things need to have an ending chapter. I think that's something that we and comics forget that, and all those projects we've done before and things that didn't work, we had to say, all right, it didn't work. Let's close that door and work on the things that do and try to make that good.
Which isn't always easy to do. I talked about how, I was doing a podcast before this show, and at some point I had to let that go, and it was like I wanted to hang on to it because it was like, this is my baby, but at the same time it was so different than when I began, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I had to let that go. And it's the same thing with a lot of these series, and I mentioned that podcast because a lot of those episodes were actually on this channel as well, so we tried that too.
Oh yeah, this is a cool comment. I like this one. It says, Mike, I liked your recent video when you went to second in Charles. I found a few good comics there. Nothing great, but you really have to hunt. I like going there for trades. I went there because I had a dance competition at Jacksonville this weekend, and they had a second in Charles. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them before.
No.
Yeah, I've been to a couple. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's a Southern thing.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I went, and there had some really good stuff. This year, I went, and when it came to the comics, I mean, they were trashed. Trashed. And they were like selling them $2 a book. I didn't get a single comic from them. So, but it was cool because it was like a comic book hunt with me and my son. I usually do those when I go on these dance trips. So I actually did go to a comic book shop. But second in Charles, I never heard of them until I went to Jacksonville.
I forget where I went to them, but it was like, I don't know. We were going to a convention somewhere. It might have been in Louisiana. It was probably in Louisiana that I went to one, and that one was decent. It had a lot of trades, and it had like a lot of Funkos and books and stuff. And so it's kind of like if anybody's heard of a Hastings, it's kind of like that. Only so it's very similar. But the one I went to was decent. I don't remember what I got. I probably got a couple of pops at the time we were collecting them. So.
Yeah, they had a lot of new stuff, but then they also have a lot of old stuff too.
Right.
Tevye asks, there was a podcast with Scruffy Muffin on Comic Frontline, which is my opinion a fun episode. What happened to the old episodes? Again, we wanted to showcase the content that we were proud of, and again, I think it was only fair for those past members to not to profit off of those. So we just we they are in the ether, but I don't know what Scruffy Muffin is. So you have a better memory of me. That's the only reason I mentioned that. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So, but yeah,
I remember a lot of moments from this show, but that's not one of them.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But yeah, we wanted to streamline. This is a new show. We didn't want to have the 10 billion versions of that show. So we only wanted Comic Book Weekly so we wouldn't confuse people. So that is why
it's bad. It's almost bad enough that we still kind of call it Comic Frontline. It's really, we tried to like really label it Comic Book Weekly. That's kind of like the new brand going forward, so that's really
like all our socials are Comic Frontline, so it's kind of hard to, we could start from fresh, but I that name might be taken. I don't know. I didn't really check. But
we have another question here. So with the past, what's in store for Comic Book Weekly in the future? That's a really good question. Do you have any goals for what you want to accomplish? Yeah, I would say continuous growth. I think that's what we're here for, is like we want to continue to do this show and get as many eyes on the show as possible. So if you have friends that you think you'd be interested in watching the show, send them here. We just want to make a community of people who want to talk about comics in a positive light and be honest about comics without being negative about comics. That's our thing, and we hope to share that with more people.
Yeah, I think we have good passion for comics. I think we put on a solid show. I think, yes, we're not as negative as maybe some other people, and some people may like that. Some people find that funny. If you like that, that's fine. But, we're here trying to be positive about things. That's just, even when things may not be so great
at times,
it's just, we're trying to be respectful at the same time. And there's a way to do that.
For sure.
Yeah, constructively instead of destructively. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to put it. We also have the name change. It says, was being on YouTube the first step in becoming a comic creator? Yeah, in many ways, I think it gave me in particular the confidence to be a comic creator. And, I still feel like I reap the rewards of Comic Uno, where I just made a lot of connections with people because of the reviews I did. Like a great example of something that was just kind of recent was I did an anthology about hair. And I messaged Gail Simone and I was just like, hey, would you want to like just share it around? Cause I know like maybe, your audience would like it. And she's like, you should just ask me to do a forward. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. And she knows me because of Comic Uno. Like, we met through conventions and stuff. And she's like, oh, I really like your reviews. So, little things like that where, that wouldn't have never happened if I didn't do Comic Uno, or even some of the variant covers we've had in the past as well. Just connections I've made through Comic Uno. So yeah, no, for sure. I think it's helped a lot.
For me, it's kind of the opposite. So I was creating comics for YouTube, and I think I have more connections because I did a podcast, so that's similar, and also because I did comic related, which at one time we were like really booming with that site, and we met a lot of creators that way. So I think I got known a little bit through that work, through being a journalist like Kat. So that helped. But as far as YouTube, I'm always the other guy. I'm always the one nobody remembers. So I don't think it's benefited me as well. But who knows in the future?
You're not the other guy to us. We have actually a couple more comments here. So thank you guys for being so gracious with your comments. First, we'll answer this. Highland Low Roller. Maybe I'm dumb, but how do you make your own comic book label? You create a business, right? It's like asking, how do you make a restaurant? It's business. And that's all
this.
Yeah. I won't go into the nitty gritty of it, but that's the short answer.
But yeah, it's, you can make it as simple or as complex as you want to as well. You could just literally create a name and a logo and pop that on your comic and not do anything else. Is it completely legal? I mean, is it going to give you legal benefits? Probably not. But, or you could go to DBA and all that stuff, but that's a whole other show and that's a whole other topic. But it's not as hard as you would think.
We have a couple more comments here. Heard a shout out of your comic on Comic Pop to review your new book. That's awesome. Yeah, we actually sent some comps out. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't even know that. I just took a picture of it to tell Phil, my business partner, because it's cool. We gave some comps out to creators and some journalists because we're like, you know what, we're proud of this book. Let's just put it out in the ether and reward people who do either coverage or are in the queer space. And it's cool. There's this Instagram person I listen to, and their husband's trans, and I very much enjoy their content on Instagram of like queer stuff. And I followed them for so many years, and we've talked over the time. And I was like, hey, she helped connect us with a writer for our next anthology. So I was like, oh, to thank you, we're going to give you some comics. And then today on Instagram, she shared the 2 comics, which is just kind of crazy to me because I've been following her for so many years from a different point of view. So to see my comics in her Instagram, I'm like, oh, that's just really cool. And same thing for Comic Pop. We've been friendly over the years, so that's cool. That's really awesome. So we've sent it to a few people. We'll see who ends up sharing. Okay, we have another comment here. The Neighborhood Merc. Appreciate what you 3 do with the show. I watch every week, mostly the replay, but it's a highlight of my comic week. One of the few live shows I look forward to on YouTube. Thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah, it means a lot.
It really does. Yeah.
And then this is about the sales. This is about the Ashcan variant. So Dino might ask what the Ashcan variant is. It was a way publishers would quickly get trademark rights to a character idea. It'd be cheaply produced preview, which was required to submit. Now it's a sales tactic. Yeah, sales tactic to promote your book before it's done.
Right.
We have another question from Tevia. Are you proud of any of those old memories you had on Dark Avenger Inc. and the rebirth of it all? Yeah. Why wouldn't we be?
Sure.
Of course.
There's
a
ton. There's a ton. Yeah. Like, yes, we named some of the bad stuff, but there's so much more good than bad.
Yeah. So many great memories.
I mean, we've had interviews with Meredith Finch.
Yeah, David Finch.
Colin Bunn interviews. We had Patrick Shan on the shows over the years. I mean, we've had a lot of people on. We've just done so many things, so many wacky things, just wild, right? And just at the end of the day, though, it's like you said, we've all grown, we've all become adults, we all have time that we don't have.
Yeah, no time.
We want to make sure we get the show in and do what we need to do.
The supervillain thing was one of my favorite things that we did.
We did villains month, pretending villains. We used to have more time for creativity. We used to do our comic award show. I'll answer this one too. Let me see. Heck, you also had group collaborations with other YouTubers like me and some others. What happened in those videos? Just wondering. Honestly, they're hard to put together. Even the interviews. I mean, we'll sometimes very, very rarely have interviews. That's only if they ask us. And we'll have interviews, but we kind of talked about it. But the theme of this video is too many voices are sometimes not a great thing. Too many cooks in the kitchen, and the 3 of us know how to work with each other. We love each other, and we're gonna keep it that way. We're not adding. We're not adding any more unknown variables to the show.
not to say we won't ever have like a guest on the show ever, but this is the format that works for us these days. Right. So, but as far as like what happened to those videos, if they were on this channel, we, like Kat said earlier, we just kind of focused down the channel on the content we wanted to be out there. So
yeah, for sure. But that's the anniversary Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was fun to go down memory lane and just like remember why we do it. And we're looking forward to the future too. Again, we just want to continue to grow and continue for you guys to enjoy our content. But honestly, most of all, continue to have fun with the 3 of us and you guys being there for along the ride, because I think the show only moves if we're enjoying it. So
and we appreciate each and every one of you. Every week we get excited to see people watching the show and people we can interact with, and that's one of the big reasons we keep doing this, because we get to interact with you all and it just means a lot to us that you watch and enjoy the content. So
yeah,
and make friends along the way too. Again, like I've met Tevye in real life when he went to New York Comic Con. I love seeing those faces, and some people at other Comic Cons too be like, I watch Comic Book Weekly, and just knowing your names for such a long time and hearing your voices also are really important. Either the voices we just came a year ago or it's yesterday to the voices like Serenity and Tevye have just been here for like 10 years plus, and that really does matter. And again, I didn't want to be like, oh man, only 3 of us matter, because like you guys matter too, for sure. Yeah, and
absolutely.
the big fun of it, isn't just us talking; it's the chat as
well.
No, like
that's huge. That's huge. When there's no audience and there's no comments, it makes it for a very dull show in very many ways. I mean, I have people that come to the comic shop that know our show and listen to our show, and like they're waiting for the store to open, and they're literally listening to our
that's
show.
so funny.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's so funny. It's like I have this gentleman who comes in and he's like, Mike, he's like, I was just listening to your guys' show from last night, and he's like, we're talking about it and stuff. So it's just awesome to have that.
Yeah, it really is. And there's if you're ever scared to comment, we really do appreciate the comments. Like, get your voice out there. We want to interact with you guys, because it really is the most important thing. Because there's some weeks, which we haven't had in a really long time, but there's slow weeks sometimes. We're like, oh man, we didn't get as many comments, and you got 50 to 100 views live, and if the comments aren't there, it's not as much of a fun show, because we want to interact with you guys. We love the questions and why we did the Q&A. We wouldn't do this show without you guys. I think, that goes back to the throw your towel thing. Yeah. If you guys weren't here, it wouldn't be, this wasn't a live show. It would have been hard. I think, podcasting is fun, but I think the live factor of it is what makes it really fun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think we'd still be doing this if it was just to nobody.
Yeah.
or without the live aspect of it, which again was, something we've been doing since day one. So
this really, really means a lot. I started reading comics like 2 years ago. Probably wouldn't have ever gotten into it without this show.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That really does mean a lot. I feel like I spam the chats this time and maybe we'll watch live. No, you're not spamming. We love just seeing all the comments, no matter if it's just like, oh, that's fun, that's cool. Like we want to see those comments.
And even if we don't answer, it's not that we don't care. It's that we do have a show that we do have to get through. So that's why at least we post the comment on the screen. So we try to get to certain comments when we can. And then, I always hate saying this, because it's like, I don't want to like ever ask for money, but always the guarantee for the answer of a chat would be a super chat.
Yeah.
That's always a guarantee answer to your question. Otherwise, we try to get to the questions while the show is going on live.
Yeah, but like Kat said, we try to keep the show under 2 hours these days. And when she said 5 hours, that was no exaggeration. We would do 3, 4, 5 hours.
We would start at like 9:30 originally, and it would go till 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock sometimes, and we're like
falling asleep.
Yeah.
I think I actually fell out of my chair. I think I was like leaning back in my chair and actually fell out back in my chair once.
Oh
yeah.
No, it was so tiring. And again, like if we couldn't stay up, how could anyone else stay up? So
right. Yeah.
But yeah, let's do the thing that we do best. Let's get into comics for this week.
Yeah, let's get into the comics. I guess we can't spend as much time on the comics today, because we spent a long time on the topic,
which is okay. Yeah,
which is fine, because that's what this show was about this week. So let's get through the comics. So we're gonna talk about let's get this one out of the way. Let's talk about Batman. Issue 142, because this was like the topic of the show, right?
Yeah, right. Which is interesting, because the topic, and mostly was the was the 10 years, but the topic of the show. This is interesting because it wasn't. Everyone said it's not what they expected, and I am in the same boat. Whereas it felt so generic in so many ways, where it's just like heard the backstory of Joker, at least to try the backstory of the Joker, but like the art's good, the prose is good, but the story just didn't hook me at all. And I felt disappointed, but it wasn't like my bottom of my list either. It was like my number 7. It was like 3 stars, but it was just like this kind of middle ground book that kind of left me scratching my head of like, did I like it? I don't know. It's not badly written, but it's not exciting either.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it because, first of all, like, I get why you have Giuseppe Comicoli's artwork on it because it's a Joker story, right? And so he's the one that did the Joker series. But I feel like if you want to tell that story, shouldn't you tell it in the Joker comic, not in the Batman comic?
Is there still a Joker comic?
I don't even know. But even if there was, right, that's where you should tell that story. Like, right. And I wasn't expecting it to be like this 3 Jokers thing. And I felt lost. I felt so disconnected from everything. I thought this was going to be like Joker being in the jail cell, like screwing with Batman's mind and telling him all these weird stories and shit like that. And I was disappointed with this. This is totally not what I expected from it. I was bored. I didn't know. I was lost. I didn't like it. This was like my least favorite book because I expected something much different and I did not like the storytelling here.
Are you continuing it?
I mean, I have not stopped reading Batman since I started reading Batman in the New 52. I can't just stop Batman. Right.
I didn't like dislike it as much as you two. I don't think it was, especially you, Mike. I guess I wasn't expecting anything out of it though, and I hadn't really been loving it, this run at all, which is really odd for me to say. Yeah, so I actually liked it. I didn't love it, but I did like it. I do agree with that comment though. Knowing his origin is I'm kind of in the middle on that because when we found out Wolverine's origin, it like kind of ruined some of the mystique of the character, and I'm worried about that a little bit.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I thought it was interesting that, you know, one of Batman's mentors is going to become one of the Joker's mentors. And it's, you know, building up that parallel between them, I thought was interesting. So I thought there was enough in here to keep me intrigued, at least for the moment. So
I don't know, man. See, like, I don't know if I can get down with that. Like, why does Joker have to be connected to Batman? Why isn't it good enough that he's just a nemesis and he's freaking crazy and you don't know what he's going to be thinking and he's very mischievous from the start? Like, I don't want to see an inner monologue of what he's thinking and him being infatuated with Batman from the very start and when he doesn't even know who he is. It just, I don't know, man. It just seems weird to me. That's just me though, you know?
I get that because it's kind of turning Joker into Lex Luthor a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, having that direct tie. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that.
You know, so I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but it's personally not my cup of tea. So we'll see what happens. All right. So then let's talk about Ultimate Black Panther issue 1. New book. This is the next, you know, Ultimate thing that's going on in the Ultimate Universe. A lot of hype because of Spider-Man. Did this one meet your expectations?
I didn't really have high expectations, so yeah. I don't know much about Black Panther besides the movies, which I love. I love the Black Panther movies. I think they're wonderful, but I've never been able to get into the comics, and I think this did a good enough job to be like, oh, cool. I don't need to have any baggage about Black Panther to understand this. You have the Moon Knight connection in the end. Like, I liked it enough for issue 2. Like, I enjoyed it. Is it Spider-Man level? No, because I'm a hardcore Spider-Man fan, and you know, it does things that Spider-Man fans would like. But as someone who's never really read Black Panther, sure, issue 2 sounds fun.
Yeah, I thought it was different enough from, you know, what we get in the main MCU, and I don't read a lot of Black Panther. For some reason, I can just never get into that character. But I thought this was, like you said, Kat, it was enough to bring me back for an issue 2. I thought it was simple enough to you know, kind of get you to know all the players on the field and their motivations and not, you know, overwhelm you with a lot of backstory and history and need to know all that much. So Yeah, it was decent, but like you, I wasn't expecting a whole lot either. So
I thought it would. I'm 100% on board with you guys. Like, I really liked it. I thought it was a perfect jumping on point for a character that you may not be familiar with, at least in this universe. And the artwork was really solid in this book. I like the connection between like Black Panther and how in Moon Knight that's going to happen in this comic as well. So yeah, if there's a Black Panther book that seems like you want to try, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. So I liked it. I'll continue it, and hopefully it gets better as time goes along. All right. So then let's move on and talk about Thundercats. Oh,
that's
so,
you guys.
Yeah, I'm surprised Kat didn't even at least check it out, though.
I don't even know what a Thundercat is. At least Transformers and G.I. Joe, I have like a general sense, but Thundercats could
They're
not even
furries.
could not tell you.
They're like furries.
Well, that you didn't sell me on it.
So Thundercats was a book that it was good, but it wasn't great like I was expecting. It wasn't Transformers level, it wasn't G.I. Joe level, it wasn't Duke level, it wasn't Cobra Commander level. It was there. It wasn't, I don't want to say it was there. I thought it was good, but I thought they tried to condense so much in that first issue with only 30 or not even 28 pages, standard size comic book, right? So it was just like, oh, let me get you a little bit of the origin story of Lion-O. Oh, and then let me get you the story of like how Lion-O is no longer a boy, but he's a grown man and he should go out and lead the Thundercats. Oh, let me introduce you to, one of the bad guys. Oh, let me introduce you to Mumra. Oh, let me introduce you to the twist that's at the end. Instead of just slowing it down and just like introduce you to like maybe Lion-O and his whole situation of leading the Thundercats, right? Do you agree with me there, Brent, or not?
No, I completely agree with you. It's something that Dynamite hasn't quite gotten right with these licenses for me yet. Is they do that. They just like throw like every bit of history at you. I think this one was better than like Gargoyles, which just like threw in the deep end. But at the same time, it was still a little bit too much, and they could have slowed it down and kind of made it focus on like one or two of those elements instead of like 5 or 6. I agree. I completely agree with that.
I think it's interesting that even Lilo and Stitch did that. We talked about that last week, where it's like, who needs who needs the origins of Lilo and Stitch?
Right.
Which I think they did it in a good way with that comic, but even Lilo and Stitch got a little exposition.
But as somebody like I never watched Thundercats. Like I would see a random episode here and there, but it wasn't my thing for whatever reason. It's like this weird kind of juxtaposition of He-Man and Transformers like mashed together is what Thundercats is with giant cats, because they flee their planet, they come to this new planet, but it's very like He-Man like visually. So it's this weird thing, but so for me, as someone that came in with not a whole lot of knowledge of Thundercats, I felt like there was too much thrown at me, even with it not being as much as other books. So,
and I thought it was decent. Yeah. I thought that the artwork wasn't as good as it needs to be in a comic like that. Like being that I did watch the show when I was a kid, the animation in the show was very well done. And the artwork in this book, where it wasn't horrible, not in any stretch of the imagination. But they were not the Thundercats that I expected to see on that page, on the pages of that book. The facial expressions were off. Tigra was a character that almost looked like he was wearing a mask instead of look like a tiger. Chitara, you would expect her to be, obviously she's the female of the group and she is a tiger, and you expect her to be a little bit more like sexy, curvier. She just looked like, I don't know, like too cartoonish in very many ways. And it just looked a little off. I thought Mumra looked very like cartoon accurate. but there were some characters that didn't even have faces on them all the way. So I felt like the artwork was a little bit off too. So listen, I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. It was better. And I'm hoping that in future issues, it does get better because it did leave you with a pretty cool cliffhanger at the end of it.
No, yeah, it did. It definitely did that. So it was definitely enough for me to get issue 2. I think it did its job in that regard. But if it continues the way it is right now, I can see me dropping it.
Sure. I can totally understand that. Yeah. All right, so let's jump forward now to number 5. Kat, what was your number 5?
Mine was Ghost Lore, issue 8. Again, it's just one of those reliable reads. I like the artwork a lot as someone who enjoyed the basket full of heads stuff and in the refrigerator full of heads. And it's just interesting enough main characters with the dad and the daughter. They're separated right now, but anytime it dives into the actual like ghost stories is not my favorite part, but I think the lore is interesting and they're digging a little deeper into that. So had a fun time with it.
Cool. What about you, Brent?
I'm gonna go with Ultimate Black Panther. I was going, but I didn't read a whole lot of books this week, and I was going back and forth between it and Avengers. I didn't hate any books this week. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, my top 5 isn't like these blew me away this week, for the most part. But
was it timing?
Move on.
Oh, no, yeah. I was going to ask, was it timing that you didn't read a lot of books, or was it just your pull list this week?
There was a couple I didn't get to, but yeah, it was just a smaller pull list. I think I had 15 and I only got to 12.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I only read 12 books, but I enjoyed them all. It's just, like I said, nothing blew me away. I was going to ask, is anybody still reading Birds of Prey besides me?
I am. And I actually, is it in
your top 5?
Not my top 5, but we can talk about the end. No, it's in the chart, so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because there is something to talk about with it, and I'm interested to talk about that thing. So yes, I read it, and I do have thoughts.
Cool. Good. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. So, what was yours, Mike?
Mine was the Wolverine Madripoor Knights. This is issue 1.
That's so interesting because that's like on my bottom of my list. So I'm excited to hear
it. Mine too. Yeah.
So it's like Batman, it's like the switches there, Yeah. So what I liked about this book was, listen, does it reinvent comics? No. It's like Chris Claremont. It takes place after Uncanny 268. It's got Wolverine, Black Widow, Psylocke, Jubilee, and they're battling the Hand, and Captain America makes his appearance, and he's looking for these guys so they can find some extraterrestrial technology shit or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Listen, it's nothing spectacular plot-wise, but it had a lot of action. It was fun. I like the artwork. I like the characters. It just reminded me of a simpler time of just how the characters were written. Like you read Wolverine now and you read Wolverine kind of then, and it reminded me of Wolverine back in that time, back when he was in the 90s, the animated show. That's just like kind of like the way he was in here. It was interesting how their powers weren't working correctly and stuff like that. I just found it fun, right? I mean, again, there wasn't a ton of comics this week, so I don't know if in any other week this would make the top 5, and this was obviously in contention with Thundercats because Thundercats was next on the list. So I just had more fun with this.
For me, I just don't love the nostalgia books. Even Power Pack, which you guys know, I love Power Pack to death. And I'm just like, even that is just like, I read Power Pack back in the day. I don't need to read it again. I just feel like they don't move stories forward too much. And, I think it's a shame that you have a writer like Chris Claremont who can't do anything new because they rely on these nostalgia stories with the Peter Davids and the Chris Claremonts. So, look, did I hate it? No, I just think for me personally, it's not something I'm looking for in my comics.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, I thought it was a fine story. And if I read it back then, it would have been fine. But do I need it on my pull list when I've got so many other books? Probably not.
Yeah,
and that's kind of why.
Totally
that's why I kind of. Yeah. So I wish like when they would do these nostalgic books, it would like be something that's going to tie into something in the present to give a little more reason to read them and invest in them. But
or even continue the story a little bit better. I think the closest to that was the J.M. Demantis one, where we got to see Craven's Last Hunt, and we got to see like another chapter of Craven's Last Hunt. And that's my favorite of all of them thus far, because at least it felt like it was doing something new.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Listen, I totally get it. Like it's one of those things that you're either going to like it, or if you don't care for the nostalgia stuff or the older stuff, like that's totally fine. I just had fun with it. And sometimes in comics, you need that. Not everything has to be like this great story, you know? What's it say? Yeah. Mike has all the millions.
I know. That's what
all millions of dollars from YouTube. Yes, millions. That's funny.
Oh man. I will tell you this. If you guys think that YouTubers make a lot of money, in order to make a lot of money, you have to have millions of views.
Or sponsorships.
Sponsorship. If I get like 3,000 views per video, and I'm not saying that's not good. I think that's great for my channel, right? And for the comic book community, because in comics, there's not a huge audience compared to all the other things out there in the world, right? Yeah. So, but when you look at the amount of money that I make, it's not that much. But I can say that it does cover the cost of the comic books each week that I buy. So a lot of people do say, like, how do you buy all these comics? Well, I kind of invest in myself because I teach tennis for a living, private lessons. I use some of that money that I get for private lessons, put it towards the comic books, and then YouTube pays me back later on. So it's kind of like a wash, right? So, but there's no way that I make millions and millions or thousands and thousands of dollars in YouTube money. Do I wish that was the case? Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's not the case. I love it.
Kickstarter.
Though. I love the comment.
Maybe Kickstarter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Going back to nostalgia comics for a second, then we'll move on to the next topic. I think it's interesting because I think when me or Bran or even Mike bring up like, oh, I don't like this. Mike actually likes the nostalgia comics. For mostly if I bring up like, oh, I don't like the nostalgia comics, it makes me sound like I don't like old comics in general. It's just that I at least I'll speak on my own. Like I read a lot of those comics growing up already. Like I've already read them. Like it's just like I love them. I love the Linda Danvers. I love the Power Packs. I love old school Spider-Man, but I don't need new versions of it. I'll just go back to the old ones.
And I mean, I get it. You're serving an audience that does miss that stuff and miss that era. I totally get it. And I have no problem with them existing at all. Right. But I'm more like you, Kat. It's like, just, give me some good stories in the present continuity and I'm good.
Yeah.
So
when I get monetized, I'm going to France. Good luck with that.
Remember, just because you get monetized doesn't mean that you automatically make the money. The journey doesn't end there. It just starts from there.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about Power Rangers, The Return.
I'm excited to talk about this.
Issue
1.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I'm really glad. I want to hear Mike's thoughts, but I'm really glad this was a good issue because I was very worried that this was going to be an issue where I'm like, oh man, maybe Mike shouldn't pick this up. But I personally enjoyed it. I thought that Amy Jo Johnson was the only person to write this. It really is this cathartic story about actually losing these real people in life. Jason David Frank just passed away. The actress who played the Yellow Ranger passed away a while ago, and you could tell that this story is just a vehicle for her to explore those feelings. And there's not a lot of Power Rangers action. I think if you're looking for that, that's not so much in this issue, but I think there's a lot of promise there that there will be, because she's obviously going to become a Ranger again. And it's cool because both me and Brian have been reading Power Rangers, and it's so different than what we've gotten now with Power Rangers, which is interesting because I still don't know Mike's thoughts, but if Mike is on the fence of there wasn't enough Power Rangers action, the actual Power Rangers book gives more of that. Yeah, no, I really liked it. I thought she hit it out of the ballpark. I very much enjoyed this issue.
I actually really liked this book.
Good.
It didn't feel like a Power Rangers book to me. It felt like almost like an independent comic book in very many ways, where it was just like, hey, it just didn't feel cheesy. It felt like a very well written story of these characters that were once heroes. It's 22 years in the future. This is what's going on. They made a pact. You get to see them kind of break that pact a little bit, on not using their Power Ranger coins and stuff like that. You get to see a missing person or what's going on, missing Red Ranger in this book. But like you said, Kat, you can see that the way she wrote this book, it did affect her real life, and it was on the pages of those Power Rangers that she lost in her life. Sure. And I appreciate that. It's like a story she wrote based off of real life, and I think that's pretty awesome. I really enjoyed that story. You can tell it's written with a lot of heart, and I like that. I really, really did. And I'm curious to see now the mystery here of this mysterious person that was, what is it, Trini's cousin's mom or something weird?
They really separated that one. That one just had me scratch my head a little bit. I'm like, why didn't you just make her like sister or daughter or someone a little closer?
Like Spaceballs. It's like, you're my sister's mom's cousin's friend roommate.
Right. It was something weird like that.
Yeah. So, but I loved it. I really did. I thought this was a great book. And, again, it's
good art too.
If you're looking for Power Rangers, action, Zords, you're not getting that here. And it's emotionally driven book. And you don't have to be, in my eyes, you don't really have to be a Power Rangers fan to enjoy this book.
And that's something I really want to sell, and I do want to hear Brand's thoughts too, but that's something I really want to sell in the actual Power Rangers book too, because I think there is this fear of like, I jump into this and it's a lot like the show, or I need to know a lot about Power Rangers. And there's some aspects to it. I think there's some mythology you could dive into if you want to, but it is a very emotional book that always has character first. And I think that's why I've always been really impressed by Power Rangers. And I said this last week, and Mike, I don't think you were here, but it's the Avengers book that you actually want to read is the current Power Rangers book. It does teamwork really, really well. And they've been hitting out of the ballpark with all the books out. But Brant, let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, real quick, as far as the main Power Rangers book, it's the thing I like about it is it's not that cheesy over the top stuff with the show was. And that's what I didn't like about the show. So that's why I recommend that book to anybody. It's just a really good comic. But as far as this one goes, yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. Heartfelt story. It had everything. It had like a lot for longtime fans of Power Rangers that are very connected to these characters, that know these characters well. But if you're coming into this cold, I feel like it gave you just enough to be able to figure out who everybody is and where they fit into the story and how they connect to each other. And it's a great launching pad for the story going forward. It gives you a lot of drama. It teases action to come. I thought it was brilliant. And the art was really nice as well. I thought the likenesses of the actors was pretty decent here as well. So yeah, there's a lot to love for this. So.
Yeah, pick it up, guys. Even if you're not a Power Rangers fan, it is really easy to get. I mean, Mike could attest. It's really easy to get into. And I'm really glad these nostalgia books are doing that. Because again, in the vein of Transformers, it's like, get a new generation to like these franchises. Or an old generation to like these franchises.
I never liked Power Rangers, but I did for some reason see a lot of episodes. And I knew obviously who all the characters are and all that stuff. So. And like I said, I saw the movie. So it's just one of those things.
In my case, it's like my brother's 15 years younger than me. So he grew up with it and I watched it with him. So I didn't like it because I was older, but he was really into it. So I'd watch it for him and with him. So.
And also at the time, you know, either, you know, from a point of view of gender or race. There's only show where you could see like a black hero as the lead or a female hero as the lead, and it was really one of those first times. And for me, I liked seeing all that as a kid. I was like, cool, it's not that just that one, you know, that person that looks like Batman. It's just like there's all these kids that you could relate to. And yeah, it was cheesy, but that was kind of the fun of it too. If you like horror movies and like cheesy horror movies, you could enjoy the cheese.
Just like, I just couldn't get over it, a show where it's just like, okay, let's go. You know, let's do this.
That's the fun.
I'm talking now because my head is moving. Yes.
Right.
I watched the we were packing or something when I was watching the Power Rangers special for the 30th anniversary, and I just watched it in the background. So I'm like, oh, you know, I'll watch it just because it's here and it's very easy to do while you're doing other things. And Phil has never watched Power Rangers before. Everyone knows my love for Power Rangers, but there's this scene where this like gay couple comes up and Phil's like, wait, there's gay people in this? And the way that was so cheesy. It's just like, gotta save my boyfriend. And it was so funny. I love that. I love the cheese. I think it's fun.
All right, let's push forward here. We are on number 4.
Yes.
So I'll talk with Brant first on your number 4.
Batman. So we already talked about it.
All right. What about you, Kat?
Mine was Black Panther. So we already talked about it as well.
Okay. And my number 4 is mine was Black Panther also. Okay. So that's good. So that takes us along to X-Men issue 31. So
when's
finally
this over? When's Krakoa over?
I don't know. The only thing
I don't even remember what happened in this book. This is like the very first book.
It's the Children of the Vault.
No, not this one. This was not the Children.
No, it's Laura and what's his face is in this issue.
Yeah, he's not the Children of the Vault though.
But they're involved in the Children of the Vault. Wasn't that their whole story?
They were in the vault, but they're not to the Children of the Vault. So.
No, but they were like, that was their art.
They were
the
trapped.
Children of the Vault stuff.
Yeah. The thing of it all is that in the last issue, remember, she wound up getting zapped away
and stuck in his head.
Zapped her mind in his mind. And now it was forcing him, like, he can't hold her in his mind forever. Otherwise, his mind is going to collapse. So he was forced to let her go. And then they did this battle against Nimrod, which I thought was pretty decent emotionally. Like, I was like, okay, like, I feel bad for him. He truly loved her. But you know what? Finally, someone freaking died. And there's no like old X-23 anymore. Right. She's the original X-23. So technically she dies and the resurrected one or the reincarnated one is the one that's out there living now.
Yeah.
I am really excited for this to all be over. I just can't, I can't get on board, man. It's just so boring to me. I don't even know how long I want to continue this. I love Kitty. That's the reason why I'm reading the flagship. She's in it, but I'm like, when's it over? Like, you've been doing this Fall of X for months, and it just doesn't feel like there's a finish line.
Yeah, talking about behind the scenes content. One of Kat's titles for this week was, I'm trying to find it so I can get. How long can the X-Men fall? Which I thought was hilarious.
Because truly, it's been months.
Yeah,
it's been probably like, I feel like it's been almost like a year at least.
It feels like it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And again, I couldn't remember what this book was even about until you said Children of the Vault. I was like, okay.
I'm glad Children of the Vault helped.
It's like I feel bad for Sync, but at the same time, I don't care about Sync because Sync is not a real character. He's so one-dimensional. It's just they haven't done anything to make me care about this character, I don't feel like. He doesn't feel like he has a personality to me. And so anytime I read Sync in a book, there's a complete disconnect for me. So.
Yeah, I feel like none of the X-Men have personalities, even the ones that you like the Kitty Prydes or the Cyclops. They have just so much going on that there's not any character work. There's no gut punches.
Very
it's been
true.
a few issues since, the X-Men book was actually, had a really good issue, right? So, and this is the one that you need to read to kind of keep going with everything. And this one almost felt like okay, well, the point was to what? Just kill off Laura? That's all it was, you know? So I don't know. Spider-Man was randomly in this issue for some reason, and he's like, was he like driving like a trash can or a trash truck or something like that? Like, I don't even know, man. It was just,
I don't know either.
And the art wasn't that great in this one. I think this one's done by Phil Noto, so it's just like I don't know, man. It was so it's just sad. We need like Kat said, we need this to be over.
Seeing Spider-Man in there too, I'm like, aren't you in the middle of a gang war, dude? What are you doing?
Yeah. Oh, here's the biggest kicker. This is what I forgot. Typhoid Mary makes her appearance in this comic, and he reunites with Kingpin, and you're like, wait, she's in Spider-Man Gang War.
Right, exactly. Yeah, same thing. It's like continuity, man.
It's weird. All right, let's move on. You guys wanted to talk about Birds of Prey.
Yeah, this was actually interesting because you end that first arc, and I still don't like this arc by any means. But then in the end of the issue, you get to see that Barbara Gordon might die, and I'm like, all right, you got me there.
Not only that, but it seems like there's going to be a revolving cast of characters because it's going to be a completely different team when start next issue.
Oh, you say, oh God, but I'm excited. This team is, I did not like this team. Yeah. I'm like, I want to see what this new team is. I genuinely actually thought this was a really good turning point for this book. So I was just like, I might still not love the art, but the story is better. It's interesting because me and Brant, we stuck with Batgirls for the longest time. And it took a really long time for that book to get good. But when it did get good, it was an enjoyable enough book.
Right. Well, and now you got Batgirl there, and you've got Cassie there, and you still got Black Canary. And I'm really curious to see who they pull in. And it seems like it's going to be a more interesting story for me. So hopefully.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll keep my fingers crossed because I'm not reading it.
No, I definitely don't think it was an issue where I'm like, Mike, oh my God, you're missing something. But I think for us who stuck around, at least it feels like, at least we're reading it for a reason.
Yeah. And it does kind of give hope for people that maybe did fall off. Oh, if these characters are in it, maybe you'll pick it up and check out this arc and that arc and stuff.
All right, let's go to our number 3. So, Kat, what was yours?
Mine was Rogue Sun. I think you guys either are behind or giving up on it. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I'm just behind.
I'm behind, and I think I'm on because I'm so far behind.
I like the book. I don't think it's the strongest of Ryan Parrott's rating, but I thought this issue was pretty solid. We actually get a little bit more of the mythos. I won't spoil it, but we get the whole family involved, which I liked. But I do miss the groundedness of it. I do feel like it's so much about mythology and so much about who Rogue Sun is from all these generations that it kind of loses the essence of this is Flash Thompson if he became Spider-Man, and I miss those elements. But I thought this issue was better than what we've been getting, and but it's not my favorite series, which I'm a little disappointed by because again, I do like Ryan Parrott's writing a lot, especially in Power Rangers. But I'm still sticking around with it. Yeah,
I'm gonna stick with it. I just, like I said, a little behind, but it's not my favorite of the Massiveverse either. So.
Yeah, I still think Radiant Black is by far my favorite. I don't really think there is another Massiveverse book I love. I like the Inferno Girl, but I didn't love Inferno Girl.
Right. Yeah. And I like No One. I know both of you dropped that one, but I like it, but it just doesn't have the same oomph.
Right. Yeah. Well, what was yours, Brant? What was your number 3?
Mine was oddly enough Shazam. Like I said, it's a weird week for me.
Yeah.
I thought it's a decent read, and this was kind of fun. There were some funny moments with Black Adam realizing, I destroyed your house. Sorry, dude. And, he gets his house rebuilt and it's bigger than it was. And there was just some funny moments in it. And hopefully it's setting up for a better arc going forward. Cause this wasn't the greatest arc, for this character, but I don't know. It was better than the last couple of issues for me. So
this arc at least feels a little fun. I agree. I'm excited for the new writer who's been writing Amazons and wrote Mary Marvel to take over, and that will make me make my decision if I'm going to continue reading this book or not. If those couple of issues are still not great, I do think I'll be dropping it, which is a shame because I I want to love this book. I think there's a lot of potential.
Absolutely.
Shows that Mark Waid might be writing too much.
Maybe.
And then my number 3 was Power Rangers. And
nice.
It was number 1 for a while, and I thought it was going to be my number 1. And then there's these 2 books that are in front of it.
We'll see what those are.
All right. So now let's move on to Avengers issue 10. Brent and I read this book. And so my biggest thing is this book needs like story progression, right? And so you finally get story progression, but in many ways, it goes backwards because it's like there's this particular moment that Kang is after, and this villain is also after this moment. And this villain comes face to face with Kang, and he doesn't kill him. He just erases what the moment is so this guy can go after it and race him to it. So Kang gets all pissed off and he disappears, and he blames the Avengers that it's their fault because they didn't stop these bad guys, right? And then all of a sudden it goes to this weird portion of the story where it has Nightmare involved. And now you have to stop this cosmos from being destroyed so Nightmare can get his fix of dreams. And Scarlet Witch and Thor are there working together to help him. So I guess that's the next part of the story. What I finally come to realize in this Avengers run is that Avengers has now become a cosmic story, and everything is going to be in space. So
glad I'm not reading it.
I don't know if this is going to be something that I could like in the long term. I guess we'll still have to see. But someone pointed this out. If you realize in this Avenger run that you never see the Avengers all together, they're always in pairs of 2s doing something, or individually on individual pages.
That's true.
You never see them as a team together. So I think that's a problem, because I feel like he can't seem to write these people all together as a typical team. They're always separated or something's going on.
That is very true. Yeah, I hadn't realized that either. But now that you pointed out, I can't not see that.
Can't unsee it.
It's very true. I like that there was actually progression here, and it finally gets back to that timeless book that I actually liked, which is where all this was headed since day one with this book, that it just took forever to get there. But at the same time, it's like we go back to Nightmare. I don't want to go back to Nightmare at all. So I'm a little concerned about that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm glad it's going to be something different and move past this, team versus team kind of thing that we've been seeing since the beginning of this book. So
So it's like one of those things where you still have to wait and see.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go and talk about the Cole issue 5.
Is it the end?
Yeah.
A question mark. I really wanted to like this book. I love Paper Girls, which is supposed to be very similar tone. I love Kelly Thompson, but I just never could get into this book. And with this chapter, I'm like, if it does continue, I think I'm good.
So it's weird because I have the exact opposite reaction to this, because I was not enjoying it either.
Right.
The art, absolutely freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Love the art.
Yeah.
But the story, like for 90% of this issue, I'm like, oh man, this is so rushed and abrupt and everything. And it just did not give me enough until the end. And it was like a cliffhanger. And I'm like, oh, so this isn't the whole story. Because I was thinking the whole time I was reading this issue, this would have been so much better if it had more issues. Well, no, if it had more issues to tell the story instead of like condensing this and rushing this part of the story. But knowing that there's more story to it, it kind of gave me a little bit more hope towards it. So I actually might pick it up. I was like glad to be done, but now that there's more, I'm like, oh, well, that changes my opinion a little bit. So
see, the thing is I don't think it needed to take this long to get to that point that they needed to get to. Like, this is something that you could have done by the 3rd issue. You could have gotten to this point, and I don't know, just make it a little bit longer of a series, and then
It was a Substack book. We should remember that too. This was built to be like a web comic thing.
Right.
So that's one thing I'll forgive with the pacing is that it wasn't originally supposed to be just an image book.
It was a little frustrating. Like you get to the meat of the story right now, and now it's ending. You don't know like when it's going to come back, if it's going to come back. And it's just like, I just thought all the previous issues were just very similar, you know? And so
agreed.
Even this last issue, it wasn't good until you got to the end of it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but
I guess what I'm kind of thinking, like, as far as if it had more issues and taken longer, as opposed to you're saying it should have gotten, if they had been able to explore the world that they were in a little bit longer,
that would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree with you there. I think that's what they need. That was the direction that they needed to go in after a couple of issues, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see. Where are we at now? We're at our number 2. So, Kat, go ahead with your number 2.
You guys don't read it anymore, but I've been enjoying these last issues, and it's She-Hulk.
I read it.
Did you read it?
Did you read it? Because I got it. I did not read it.
It's a Hellcat issue.
No, because I bought variant covers for it. And so I was like, and it was a smaller week. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to freaking read it so we can talk about it. And I still don't like it. So
I love this issue.
I could wait.
I loved it.
I'll tell you what I did like about it.
Okay.
Because there's always a positive to something, right? I like the artwork. I think the artwork is improved in this issue. I thought there was some good character interactions and emotions in that comic book. You know, with Patsy and the interaction with Captain Marvel, you know, with the whole Avengers situation. And I did like the story how Carol came to Jennifer asking her to be an Avenger. And
that was fun.
She's contemplating on if this should be what she should do or not, based off of the events that happened to her in the past. That's what I enjoyed about the book. The rest of the book, when it came to pointless fighting with the demons, I get there's a relationship with Hellstrom in there with Patsy and stuff like that. And just like, again, going back to Jack of Hearts at the end of the issue.
I didn't like.
Didn't like, right?
Yeah, I didn't like that part. I didn't like the ending, but I thought the Hellcat stuff, I liked that it was just a Hellcat issue pretty much, but it was also about the three girls' friendship. And by the end, they all are kind of joining the Avengers. And this is what I'm talking about with character work. I think we were talking about that with X-Men, where it's like, I don't feel anything for anybody, but here you get to see them interact and them just be friends, but in the long run, tie that together to kind of the bigger superhero stuff. I think if you're a fan of Hellcat, you should read this issue. It really dives into her past a little bit more, especially if you read that miniseries. But I also like that it's just a big improvement from that last volume. That last volume is all Jack of Hearts, nothing ever moved, and this I think just has a better. I'm glad you got to read it, Mike. It sounds like you liked it previous issues.
I did like it better. It was definitely an improvement from what I read, because I do like how it tied into the Avengers from the past. That's what I liked about it, right? And then I like her, you know, contemplating. It wasn't just like, oh, sure, I'll be an Avenger, no problem, you know? It's just like she's got to actually think about it. But I just don't like how she then goes home and runs to her man and just sits there.
This is one page, though.
Oh, no, I know, but it's just, it always goes back to that at the end of the day. And I don't want that. That's not what I want, you know? And it's just like, I get she has a supporting cast and everything else. It's just not what I'm expecting from She-Hulk, I guess.
I'm just happy that they're not just focusing on him. That's the thing that really frustrated me about that first volume.
Yeah.
At least in this, like, all right, show a page for the people who like it, but show us other stuff too. And I just genuinely been enjoying the other stuff more. It does remind me of the book club stuff, where that was the best thing from that last volume. And this was probably the second best from that. It has a very similar vibe to that short story.
This was the best issue from what I read in this volume so far.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It's just when I was looking at the books, I had time to read one more, and it's like, okay, the Cull, Rogue Sun, She-Hulk. The Cull is the easiest one to read in that amount of time. So yeah,
this was
and the Cull was the last issue too. Yeah, this was actually this was one of my first.
This wasn't bad.
Yeah, it was a pretty easy read. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Brent, when you end up reading it. I genuinely think, especially because you like the Hellcat miniseries, I think you will like this issue. And again, I hope it just continues to be this. It doesn't have to be the best book on stands. It just has to be enjoyable enough.
Right. Yeah.
What are we on? Number 2, right?
Number 2. So that was
what was yours, Brent?
Mine was actually the Cull. So
okay.
Weird week, man. Weird week.
Mine was actually Gunslinger.
Okay, so that makes sense. That would be above Power Rangers.
Right. Just another issue that was really good about, I told you about last time about this cyborg guy that was once Gunslinger's friend, and he became a cyborg, and he was going to shoot him. Well, now you got the backstory of that particular character on what happened to him and how he became this way, and all that kind of stuff. I won't go into it because we're like, it's already 12:30. I gotta get to bed too.
Yeah.
But it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. So, and again, you can never deny the price of $2.99 for a comic book these days too. So,
makes it easy.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll just jump into Daredevil Gang War. So
don't like Gang War.
This is another one of those comics for me where it's just a fun read. I don't go too much into it. I just like how Elektra was just trying to save some civilians out in the street based off of this gang war that was happening. Owl's trying to, persuade both sides to get things in his advantage. And I like how Elektra is battling, Bologna, who's the X-23 clone in this. And it's fine. It's nothing great. It's nothing fantastic, but it's just fun to read. And I think the artwork looks really good in this comic.
I was going to say, I really like the art for this. And the thing that frustrates me about this book, and I actually do think this is the best of the tie-ins, it's that there's potential for this to be really good. Again, like you said, the X-23 clone, you have a lot of Madame Mask in here. Like there's a lot of potential in this book that just doesn't scratch the surface, and I think that's such a shame because it has everything going for it.
Yeah.
I wish this was like the main title of Daredevil because I really enjoy Elektra as Daredevil, and I enjoy that story if it wasn't so tied into the gang war. But I enjoyed this issue as well. I didn't quite make my top 5. There was something, I don't remember what it was, but there was something that just felt a little out of character for me. A couple of pages or a conversation or some line. I was like, that was kind of cheesy or whatever. Right. I don't remember what it was, but overall, as far as like the tie-ins and stuff, this has been the best one for me.
Yeah, me too. I agree 100%.
By far too, because what's the competition?
True. Yeah.
All right, so it's that time where we talk about our number 1 comic. And I can probably tell you that if I'm right, it would be Brant and Kat's number 1, which would be Power Rangers.
Yeah, very obvious one. It was an interesting week because like Brant said, there was a lot of mediocre books this week where I was like, I guess that was fine. But I was looking for that book where I was like, what's going to be pick of the week? It's a shame that there's no standout. And then I read Power Rangers. I was like, okay, good. At least this came out.
That's the only one that stood out for me at this week. Yeah, for sure.
My number 1 was Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees Us.
People have been really liking that book. Yeah.
I knew it had to be one we didn't read though.
Yeah. It's I wish you guys read this book because I think you would really, really like it.
I wish I started from issue 1. That's the shame with those type of books where it's like, I gotta catch up. And it's just
you just get the continuation of this, this bear who is an actual serial killer. Right. I told you she did this murder in other towns, and then she takes apart the bodies and then buries them in her town. And then there's a murder that actually happened in her town where she didn't commit the murder. So now she's worried about this murderer that's in her town because people are going to go digging and they're going to find all these other murdered people I should say animal people or whatever it is. And so she's trying to find the killer. right? And so in this issue, what's going on is she thinks she finds the killer, and you see her in the person's house, and she's spying on him, and you feel this suspense building, and you find out that it's not actually her as the killer, and then she finds the killer at the end of the last issue.
Oh, interesting.
Because she puts things together. It's just really good. So it's a race to see if she can kill the real murderer in the town when she's the actual murderer herself in very many ways. It's a freaking great book, man. It's so well done. If you have the opportunity to read this, maybe digitally, right?
Yeah, I don't think you're getting that first issue.
You know, it's something that I would definitely recommend. You would really, really enjoy it. It's a phenomenal read. Best IDW book besides Last Ronin. So
wow,
good stuff. Yeah.
Who writes it? Is it a new writer? Is it
last name is Horvath? He actually does the illustration in here too. So he writes, cool. Yeah, he writes it and draws. All
right. So Beneath the Trees. I'm just curious. So Patrick Horvath, like if he's done other stuff. It seems like he has. So he has 16.7 followers on Instagram. So I'm guessing he's got a career for himself. So that's cool.
So cool book, man. Definitely worth it. All right. So that is the comics. So let's jump in real quick and talk about that most anticipated.
Yeah. So how do we want to handle this? Because I know the hour is late. We just want to list them.
Let's just run down it. Yeah. Let's run down our individual ones and do it that way.
Okay. So I'll start. My number 3 is Sinister Sons. Number 2 is The Displaced. It's from Boom. I don't remember who writes it, but it caught my attention today.
I think it's yeah, it is a known writer. Give me a minute. I'm also curious about that. Issue 1, 2024.
Because I missed it when I did Friday First, and then I found it today, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting.
It is Ed Brisson.
Yeah, Ed Brisson. Yeah, so it's an interesting concept. I won't go into it, but it caught my attention, so we'll see what that one has. And then Night Thrasher is, by far my most anticipated this week. So speaking of nostalgia. So, all right, Kat, what's yours?
Mine's Cabinet issue 1, another new book coming out. It's like 2 different teens from very different backgrounds teaming up and, being vigilantes. Then Green Lantern issue 8 for all the reasons it's always on there. And then Kill Your Darlings for all the reasons it's always on there.
Yeah. I'll say this: Kill Your Darlings was almost on my list, and Transformers was almost on my list. But
again, those are always such the obvious ones. So when I don't see it on your list, I know like you guys are excited, but you're just trying to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that leaves you, Mike.
Well, it's going to be Night Thrasher was my number 3, issue 1. Obviously, going back to those New Warrior days, so I'm excited for that one. Yeah. Blood Commandment issue 4. I've told you guys about that comic book.
Yeah, I read it.
Yeah. This is the conclusion to that series. So excited for that. And I don't care. I'm going to say it every single time it comes out. Transformers. It doesn't matter if it's on issue 2000. It will always be my number 1. So I love this book to death.
Yeah. I am gonna try Infernals. It wasn't one of my most anticipated. That's all. Because I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it.
Yeah, it feels very gothic, which I tend not to very like. In just very small short story. I went to go see Lisa Frankenstein this week, the movie, and it's everything I don't really like in horror movies. And I love horror, but I do not like gothic films. I'm not a big fan of the Sprouse brothers. And I wanted to go see it because my friends wanted to go see it, and I hated it. It just wasn't my thing. So that's the one thing. Like I could see Infernals, and I love Ryan Parrott, so I hope he changes my mind. But I'm not a big fan of like gothic, heavy mythology horror. So give me a girl with a knife, and I'm there. But
I like Cole Sprouse, but. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm not a Cole guy. You should watch that interview with him being very pompous and with that cigarette.
Okay, I don't like him like always in interviews and stuff.
Yeah,
but I did really like his take on Jughead and Riverdale. I'll be very specific with my like.
I love Rats as Jughead.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think that wraps us up. So
let's
wrap it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it, guys, for the evening. Thank you for celebrating 10 years of Comic Frontline / Comic Book Weekly with us. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. And of course, if you haven't done it yet, please make sure you subscribe to Comic Book Weekly. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, Comic Book Corner 2.0. Make sure you subscribe to Only Good Comics and Comic Uno. Don't forget to hit that bell so when these videos pop up, you automatically get those notifications, guys. Follow us on the socials as well, Instagram. I got a new TikTok on Comic Book Corner 2.0, so you guys can check that.
We gave a little nudge to Mike on that one, so we're glad that you're starting it up.
Yep. So getting it up there, just another thing that kind of fit my schedule every day. And so again, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Have a great new comic book day, and it's a very heavy comic book week, so be ready to shell out that cash. So, guys, as always, take care. We'll see you soon. Have a great